Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing to take a look at the next week's slate, heading down to the SEC as the Florida Gators head on the road to play the Missouri Tigers. And I'll start with this. This is a Missouri team. Some of the OG listeners remember us talking about Missouri this summer as being kind of a sleeper team in the SEC, maybe shock some people, go win 7 or 8 ball games. And I'll put my hand up right now. I thought I was one of the highest on the Missouri Tigers heading into the year. I wasn't even this high on what Coach Drink and the Missouri Tigers are doing. Absolutely woodshedding the Tennessee Volunteers. And now they're set to host Florida, and Florida coming off a loss to LSU where they gave up over 700 total yards of offense. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, again, just want to say thank you to you guys. The amount of support you guys have shown for all of these game breakdowns truly does mean a lot. I love doing this. I love talking ball with you guys in the comment section. Can't thank you guys enough. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And let's start with these Missouri Tigers. And it seems like every single week, and this is college football for you, every single week, people try to explain why the Missouri Tigers are not a legit team in the SEC, not one of the better teams in the country. And every single week, the Missouri Tigers continue to show why those people are wrong. I mean, they played Georgia extremely close, had a chance to win that game, and then they go in. But Dill, my brother, picked Tennessee to cover the spread on the road at Missouri. And what do the Missouri Tigers do? They don't only just win that football game, they absolutely dominate. Let's start with this Missouri offense going up against the Florida defense that I was so high on to start the year. Austin Armstrong, a young defensive coordinator. I mean, the wheels are kind of falling off. And I know they're banged up. They lost their star linebacker, Shamar James, but 701 total yards to LSU. And I get LSU, probably the best offense in the entire country. It's inexcusable. I mean, 372 passing, 329 rushing. You look at the overall numbers for this Florida defense, they're really just struggling down the stretch, giving up 30 points per game. That's 92nd in the country. But what's most concerning, one of the worst teams against the run, giving up over 5 yards per carry. You look at the secondary, giving up 8.7 yards per pass. That's 129th. It's a young defense. It's a young defensive coordinator. I think there's some talent on that side of the ball, but there is a steep learning curve. And when you go up against a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, that learning curve, it gets a little bit exposed. Now, the key for the Florida Gators, I think, going forward is they got to find some impact dudes, especially up front. You go back and watch that LSU game. Jaden Daniels just kind of did whatever he wanted. I mean, whether he was running, whether he's sitting in a pocket, they have to do a better job of trying to get the opposing quarterback uncomfortable. Because far too much in that game, you're looking at Jaden Daniels having plenty of time in the pocket. When he wants to break the pocket, nobody's really there. There were some blown assignments, missed tackling. It's some of the fundamental stuff of playing good defense that Florida just didn't have against LSU. And when you don't have that type of stuff against an LSU offense that's as good as it is, it's going to make you pay. And I would put Missouri in that same boat. Florida needs to clean up some of those blown assignments. They need to figure out how to tackle in space better, because you look at this Missouri team and you look at what they've done on offense. It is a really good offense that a couple of weeks ago went toe-to-toe with Jaden Daniels in this LSU team. 32.6 points per game. That's 24th in the country. 6.5 yards per play. That is 15th in the country. This Missouri Tigers team, it's well-balanced. Brady Cook is playing like one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. You have a star wide receiver in Luther Burden, but we got to talk about the man of Saturday, and that is Cody Schrader. I mean, 35 carries for 205 yards, averaging 5.9 yards per carry. He also had 5 catches for 116 yards. The narrative around Cody Schrader was a cool story, right? Coming up from the Division II level, this is a guy that gets an SEC scholarship, a good running back at the SEC level. Cody Schrader and what he did against Tennessee, that wasn't just a cool story. He is one of the top running backs in this conference. This dude plays harder than about any other player you see at the SEC level, whether he's running the football extremely hard, whether he's getting out in space and blocking for Brady Cook, checks all the boxes. He's great out of the backfield. And if you look at one of the keys to this matchup, it is the Florida Gators, who have struggled to tackle, trying to bring to the ground Cody Schrader, who you no doubt Missouri's going to make Florida tackle him a lot. And that's kind of what they did against Tennessee. They just kind of worn down that Tennessee team. how impressive that Missouri offensive performance was. This was a Tennessee defense that was top 30 in the country in a lot of metrics. They were one of the better defenses, not only in the SEC, but in the entire country against the run. And the Missouri Tigers just had their way. And I think what's even more optimistic for this Missouri team is Luther Burden is probably not 100% healthy, right? He only got, I believe, 4 touches in that Missouri game. This is a guy that was a staple in this Missouri offense through the first half of the season. He's obviously been nursing some injuries. You think about what this Missouri team could do with Cody Schrader running the ball like he is, Brady Cook playing like he is, and a fully healthy Luther Burden. I mean, this Missouri offense is extremely dangerous. Now, flipping sides, this Florida offense, Graham Mertz continuing to prove a lot of people wrong. I mean, you saw it heading into the season. People were releasing the SEC quarterback rankings, had Graham Mertz in some cases dead last. And he continues to put together a really good season, over 311 passing yards against LSU. Florida ran the football. I mean, Florida on the offensive side of the ball did plenty enough to win that football game. The defense let them down. But this is a Florida offense that is slowly putting it together. Graham Mertz playing really good. Trey Wilson, a true freshman, is one of the more dynamic playmakers in this conference. Not only for the freshmen, but just he's going to be special. Ricky Pearsall is really good. ETN running the rock extremely well. I think the offensive line is probably the concern of this group. Still struggling in pass per second. Damian George. They got some guys who just probably don't belong playing SEC football as starting offensive linemen. But outside of that, this offense has really played some good football in the back half of the season, going up against the Missouri defense that is coming off its best performance of the year. And you look at Josh Heupel, that is the least amount of points he scored in his Tennessee tenure. You look at what they did against the run. This was a Tennessee team that was averaging over 5 yards per carry on the ground. It was one of the best rushing offenses in the entire country. The Missouri Tigers hold them to a stat line of 23 carries for 83 yards, 3.6 yards per carry. The Missouri Tigers, they're not only gritty, they got some NFL dudes up front. Darius Robinson, looking like one of the better defensive linemen in this conference. Tyron Hopper, a really good linebacker. Chuck Hicks. I mean, it is a group that has guys in the front seven, and the secondary is playing some really good football. I mean, Chris Abrams-Drain, an NFL guy. Carnell, Charleston. These guys can play in the back end, and you look at this Missouri Tigers team, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about for this Missouri team heading into the year, is that you look at this roster. There's not many holes in it. And then what you've seen is a complete roster that now has difference makers stepping up, being Brady Cook, Luther Burden, Cody Schrader, Darius Robinson. You combine a complete talent with guys who can impact the game like the names I just mentioned. That's how you're getting such a special team for the Missouri Tigers. Now, getting to the pick here, Florida coming in, lines bounced around a little bit, sitting at 11.5-point favorites. I'm going to tell you right now, and many Florida fans know, I'm a believer in the Florida Gators. And although we knew there were going to be some growing pains this year, I still think this program can get back to where it belongs. But in this game, in this circumstance, in this spot, for how good Missouri's playing, man, give me the Missouri Tigers. They continue to roll. I think it's one of the more complete teams in the SEC. That offense absolutely cooking. The defense playing like a dominant group. I think Missouri takes care of business at home. And this is a group that has a chip on its shoulder, right? Because the national media refuses to talk about the Missouri Tigers. And the narrative when they had a 10-point game against Georgia was, oh, it doesn't look like Georgia's that good. Go back and look at what Georgia did against Ole Miss. They absolutely throttled them. This is a Missouri team that's one of the best teams in this conference and in the country. Give me the Missouri Tigers to cover that 11.5 points again. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.